Hi guys, 42 Prime here, back with another custom review, and today we're looking at the Transformers Legacy movie universe Create-A-Bot, specifically in his beater form. But for looking at him, let's take a quick look at the paints. So as per usual, I did use some white surface primer, as well as some TS79 semi-gloss clear coats, as well as TS29 semi-gloss black, some TS58 pearlite blue, some TS26 pure white, and some TS42 light gunmetal. And then for the hand paints, I use some whites. It'll focus a little bit, so thank you. Some sky gray, which I finally got some, you know, saying it for the last few videos. Some sky blue, some semi-gloss black, and chrome silver. Now I also used red. I also used a red paints, but I mixed the last little bit of it I had for my next project, and I also used an orange mix, which I also remixed for my next project. So I don't actually have any form of those bottles to show, but if I had orange, I would just use the standard orange, and it's just the standard red paint. So yeah. Anyways. Here he is in his car mode, and if you are confused by that name, let me explain. So, for those that did not own a DS, or were too young to own a DS, or even too old, I don't know, some people are weird. Back in the first live-action movie, they had DS games for both Autobots and Decepticons, and in these games, you could actually scan various vehicles throughout each map. You can get cars, you can get helicopters, you can't get a tank, even though Brawl's in the game, and there's a tank enemy. Like, there's a tank vehicle in the game, but you can't scan it and be a tank, but they programmed a tank in the game. Anyway. But in the Autobots campaign, when you first land on Earth, the very first vehicle form you scan is the beater car, which is what this is based on. Yeah, we're doing that obscure, I guess. But just for a little quick comparison, there it is next to what the model is, so you can kind of see where some of the color inspirations and layout came from. Of course, these cars are not one-to-one. This is just the closest approximation to what it was. But as you can see, this is the Legacy Chase mold in completely white, and it is not Prime Tailgate. So, I deserve points for originality. A lot of people on Twitter thought this was going to be Prime Tailgate. And I mean, fair, you know, like I sort of hope that happens, but at the same time, I'm going to be so upset because it's going to make this custom so redundant, and I'm going to absolutely redo it. Just to not have so much paint chipping, because this was hard, alright? This was a really hard custom. Like, this was a pain, I'm not even going to lie. I like it, I like how it turned out, but, geez. So, coming here on the front, you can see the little bits of orange there, headlights and the full-on black grille going on. Then moving up, you do see the black stripes, which were a nightmare. This has to fold up, and I still couldn't get all the chipping to stop. This is just the cleanest form I could make. Painted up the rim silver and the little exhaust there silver. I actually should have just sanded those off, and I didn't think about it until after I did this. And then back here, I tried to do a little bit of taillights with these little back bits, which afterwards I realized that that's probably supposed to be the taillight, but you know what? It's too late. I don't want to redo it. But so in this alt mode, the only bit that is still Chase is, of course, the black of the tires and also the door. This door is still the solid plastic white, and then I added that little bit of black there on the handle just for a little bit of some fun. I like painting those every now and again when I can. I know, it just adds something. Adds a little something, I like it. These windows here are a surprising match to what the colors are in the game. And this is a blue that I've had for, I think, over probably about 2 years. I forgot why I bought it, but I had 2 bottles. Do not remember what it was for at all. Could not tell you. But when I was trying to find a blue that matched closely, I saw that and I was like, oh, and it worked. The top here is actually I sanded down the light bar and I sanded this whole part down, which did leave this little square, which I probably should have filled in, but I just couldn't be bothered. It looks alright still. You can't tell there's a head back there. So it's like a black void. But no. That is pretty much it for his car mode. So let's go ahead and get him into his robots mode. And here in robot mode, he is quite nice. I kind of like the simplicity of the colors. Like there's just enough breakup to make it interesting without being too boring. Coming here, we'll start down with the legs. I love the black striped look that this creates. Like I've seen like Lockdown customs and stuff where they have like stripes or just others, and I just think that look is really cool to me. But of course, the feet are still feet. These are still lights. I think the little bits of color here really pop compared to the chase mold. Which, speaking of, the main bits that are the same is all the gray internal parts I kept the same. The forearms are pretty much the exact same other than the previously mentioned little bits of paint there. I kept these blue struts on the inside just because I figured I would have just paint chipped a lot anyway, and it really didn't bother me. A little bit of stuff I had to sand in here, which I'm going to get more into that later. And then, of course, the waist is all the same. But, yeah, I do think it turned out quite nice. The one thing I do wish I could have done, but it would not have been possible with just how this toy is built, is I would have loved to have switched out the frame from the Prime Cliffjumper version just because of the darker gray plastic. I think would have really sold it a lot better with, like, the movie aesthetic. But, minor issue. Don't really matter that much. It doesn't bother me a ton. Let's get a little bit of a close-up on this head here, which this is actually the Combiner Wars Skydive head, which I did mostly just kind of leave. I left the black, which it's inaccurate, but this is more of an approximation of the design rather than trying to be as close as possible. But I also left it like this just to kind of avoid some chipping because it isn't the best on this. Like, I made it fit just barely, but like he really can't turn his head, and he's just kind of, his head's really in there because it's so wide at the base. If I ever redo this custom, if I ever do a Prime tailgate, I'll probably like try to, I have other Skydive heads, surprisingly. I'll probably try to like sand down the sides or a little bit. But I mainly chose this head because the actual model in the game, his head is just a cone. It's just a triangle, and I thought it was really funny, so I'm like, I gotta have the triangle look, and this guy, Skydive's head is also a triangle, so it works. You can see here the little bits of the black stripes. And like I said, the chase arms are just the same. But I do think the amount of color breakup is good. Like I said, just enough. So the initial plan for this custom was to keep strip the paint off of any of the white plastic parts that were painted blue so that it would have less paint chipping. But of course, every time I've tried to do this ever since like the War for Cybertron trilogy, it just doesn't work like at all. So then I have to rethink my entire strategy. So here's what we got. What I did is pretty much all the parts of these that are visible from the outside, mainly in car mode, I made sure were the new paints. But like, if you can see here, the inside bit there, that's still the white plastic. But I got as much of the paint off as possible and sanded it a little bit. Or even on the insides of the arms, you can kind of make out that like this whole inner part is just like the white plastic. And I think even the back of it, some of it's still the white plastic, whereas the outside is the new white paint. And fun fact, this is a separate piece. Like this line here, that isn't just sculpting. This is a separate blue molded part. It's just a little plate that it just popped on. I couldn't even tell. Like when I was taking the paint off these parts, I was like, why did any paint come off there? And I realized, oh, it's just a blue plate. Why isn't this whole part just one piece? It makes me wonder if they're planning something in the future and that's why these are like separate pieces. Like, is something else going to go there eventually? I don't know. We'll have to see, I guess. But yeah, just like the car mode, here is a little comparison with the actual video game model. And like I said, of course, I couldn't one-to-one match this. This is just kind of... The mold has a couple of similarities in terms of where some of the parts go. and I figure it's close enough. This is a generation style take on this guy. It ain't gonna be perfect. But he does still include his gun, which is just this one part from the chase mold, sprayed in that gunmetal and then painted black on the inner barrels. Just as in the game, he did have a little arm blaster. He also has shoulder cannons, but where do they go? Where would I put that? Unless someone wants to be awesome and just somehow make a part that just tabs into that. But you can just, completely cover his hand with the gun. So we can still have his gun arm. And I do like how that looks. Because that is just what the DS guys had. Like, one of their arms was just always a gun. But yeah, like I said, this isn't quite a perfect custom. It's got some issues. It's got some chipping. But I love those DS games. They were a really big part of my childhood. And for years, I've wanted to do something based on them. But the designs are, you saw, they're that. So it's kind of hard to think of something. And whenever this figure was rolling around, I just kind of noticed some of the similarities, and I was like, hey, why not? Now, in terms of following up other Create-A-Bot forums, I don't know. As I just said, they're kind of difficult to make. I'd really love to follow this up with Pickup, I believe is the name. It's the blue truck you scan in the Decepticon version in that same level, because I just think that would be fun. I also did add a faction symbol to this guy, just so he can sort of be both if I want him to be. Just for fun. But yeah, again, I love those games. I just really wanted to do something from it, and this is what turned out. And I think what turned out is really fun. I love doing these like random, wacky, unique ones, and this is definitely another in the line of those. But yeah, that is pretty much all I have to say. So please be sure to check out my channel for more video reviews, and please don't forget to subscribe. You can also go check out my Facebook and Twitter pages, links in the description below. And this is the 14th Prime, signing out.